I'm about as broke as shit, which makes it really fun to think about what I could drive one day if I had a ton of money to spend on dumb stuff like a Hellcat swapped Miata. Here's some cars I would build. For just going around town and grabbing groceries, I need a built mini truck. Maybe a Volkswagen Rabbit, first gen Taco, Chevy S10, or like a Nissan Frontier. I don't know, just one of those little old small trucks. Hear me out. I want to swap one of these with a turbo 4-banger, like a K24 or an SR20. That'll be so sick, right? If I get the Volkswagen Rabbit, I'd probably just keep it diesel though. I'd want this thing to be a race car truck. I'm talking tube chassis with a little fire extinguisher, of course, bucket seats, aftermarket steering wheel, a gauge cluster on the A-pillar, and all the little things that go into a race truck. I want this thing to sound mean too. I'm thinking high flow cats. And then just some basic other little things like a vibrant ultra quiet resonator or some sort of like basic Flowmaster sport muffler. I don't really care, nothing crazy. I'd probably weld a drone pipe on too because I don't fuck with drone. I'd get a nice blow off valve for the SR20, and I'm thinking a sequential gearbox with straight cut gears. Is that crazy? Should it be a 6-speed manual? I'd probably do the Sedev SL90 if I was gonna do sequential straight cut gears. But then I need a custom bell housing. Well, good thing I'm rich in this hypothetical world because I'd probably have my own CNC machine. Anyway, by the end, it would be like a mini unicorn super truck. Super mini super truck. For getting groceries, of course. For my other grocery getter, I'd definitely go for a BMW, of course, E91 335D M Sport. Apparently, these aren't that cool if you live anywhere outside of the US. But alas, I live in the US. I would love to have a built-up E91 335D and maybe even figure out how to put a 6-speed manual in this thing. I know that doesn't sound likely, but remember, I have a lot of money in this unrealistic, hypothetical, fake-ass freaking world, so I can basically do whatever I want. I love the way the E91 looks, especially the LCI version. I think this car with an M57 engine would be so sick. Saddle interior, blue exterior, 30% tint. I would definitely get rid of all of the emissions regulations because these engines aren't that loud and they sound so cool. I'd probably put a Sundown 12 in the back because wagons deserve a little bit of bass. A lot of people take the roof rails off these cars, but if I were to get a diesel wagon, I would want to use this thing for everything. I'd definitely keep the rails up there for a bike or a snowboard or something. Fun fact, E90s come with a ski bag in the back seat. Between these two grocery getters, I'd take both. The homie hauler. Everybody needs a car that you can just haul your friends around in, and it has to be super cushy, at least like in a rich hypothetical universe fake thing. My homie hauler would be a Cadillac Escalade V. These cars are long as shit and badass as shit. They look like big spy cars. I think a fully blacked out one of these would look insane. I want this thing to be a straight up bad guy car.
Jesse.
Talking about what the bad guy car.
Not like I'm a bad guy or anything, but I would want to look like a bad guy.
You know what I'm saying?
These things have those nice V8s. I'd make sure it's got a pretty low stance, 5% tint on the windows, and all that stuff. A true homie hauler. I'd probably put some subwoofers in the trunk, a Starlight headliner for my buddies in the back seats to enjoy, and holy shit, can you imagine pulling up to your friend's house in one of these things? They're so badass until you have to park. But that wouldn't be my only homie hauler, because I have too many friends. Anyway, my other homie hauler would be a 1969 Ford Aurora. You may be yelling at the screen and punching the air right now because why in the world would I choose this car? The passenger seat swivels around. How fucking badass is that? And also, look at how the doors open. It looks like Moses moving the ocean apart or something. I would make this as cushy as possible. I'd double up on the sound deadening, tint the windows, I'd keep the stock exhaust probably, and just make this thing an absolute beast of a homie hauler. Call me crazy, but does this thing need a diesel engine? Like a 7.3 liter Ford Power Stroke? It sounds crazy, but imagine how much ass this thing would haul. And would probably get dumb miles per gallon too, as long as your friends aren't fat. Out of these two options, I'm definitely going with the Ford. My muddy buddies are the cars that I would absolutely drive to the bone. I would want these cars to be tough, fun, and unbreakable. Here's some options that I'm thinking of. The Toyota Hilux is the best truck that the US never got. These things are perfect. If I were to modify modify a Hilux, I would want to make this thing a workhorse. Big tires, off-roading lights, seats in the bed of the truck. I'd give it a slight lift, but nothing crazy. I wouldn't want any kind of beautiful interior or anything though, because when I'm out jumping sand dunes with my Arab friends or wheeling around in the mud, I'd want this thing to be able to get dirty. I might have a custom bumper with a winch and stuff just for the looks. If I see someone stuck in a ditch, I'd probably just drive right the fuck past them. LOL! Anyway, if you don't know much about the Hilux, it's like a Tacoma but better in every way possible. And diesel. So yeah, that's why I want to build one of these bad boys up. But would this be as cool as a Traxxas ass truck build? We've all seen those crazy Traxxas trucks. The trucks with absolutely no space in the bed, but absolutely insane off-roading abilities. They're fast as fuck and have really good suspension. I'm not talking about the remote control cars. I mean the real ass, human controlled ass truck thingy. But I don't know what I would start this build off of. The Traxxas trucks look so different from any other truck. Maybe a second gen Tacoma? Anyway, then I would toss like $20,000 in suspension upgrades onto this thing and call it good. As fun as that would be, I don't know if this would be as practical as a built up Subaru. You know the old Subaru 2.5 RS? One of the cleanest looking Subarus of all time? Well, guess what? There's a better one, of course. The 90s Subaru WRX STI. They look the same pretty much, but these STIs are just better in every way in my opinion. If I was to get into rally racing, I would definitely want to start a build off of something like this. Honestly, I would keep the stock ride height, but I'd upgrade the quality of the suspension. I'd do a tasteful exhaust, but the interior would be gutted. Well, not like gutted. Let me tell you all about it. Block dash, bucket seats, little fire extinguisher of course, and we're done. Oh wait, roll cage, you can't forget that. Anyway, this thing would be pretty raw, so definitely not a daily. Are you guys familiar with the old Audi Quattros? They were kind of on top back in the day, so maybe that would be a better option as a muddy buddy car. They have those sweet 5-cylinder engines which sound damn nice. And they're kind of on top for all-wheel drive. So I think out of these options, my favorite is the Hilux build, although I'd have to deal with importing it. I think it would just be the coolest and most unbreakable muddy buddy. Did someone say they have a canyon that needs to be carved? Hold on, let me tell you about my Honda S2K build. I know these things are already perfect for canyon carving from the factory, but I have a few upgrades in mind. Honestly, everything I'm going to be doing for this thing is for handling, because I wouldn't want insane power for canyon carving. I think the S2K makes enough power for me already. So anyway, I'd just do coilovers, stiffer sway bars, I do front and rear strut tower braces, and just harder polyurethane bushings for all the suspension components. I'm gonna be as generic as shit for the wheels. I'm gonna do some NK RPF 1s and Michelin PS2s. All of this grip and go-kartage, you've got to be able to stop, right? Because this thing is gonna carry speed right through the corners. That's where the big brake kit comes along. I do the Brembo GT kit. Obviously this car is pretty light, so be able to stop with stock brakes, but for canyon carving, brake fade is pretty real. Other than this, I'd just do an LSD, short shifter, and some comfortable bucket seats. I want to keep this thing pretty stock looking and sounding, but just do all the small things to make it handle and drive that much better. My flashy, crashy cars. Yup, these are just the cars that I'd want in my driveway just so people can see that I'm that bad freaking ass. And I'd probably pull up to car shows with these or something. It's the E24 633 CSI, of course. I think if the Batmobile was tasteful, this is what it would look like. For my E24 build, I wouldn't want to make it that sporty. Of course, I'd drive it like it's meant to be driven, but I just like the way they look too much to risk crashing it. This is kind of unlike me, but I'd put this thing on bags for sure. I'd keep it relatively OEM plus. I've seen a lot of builds with these cars where people wide body the crap out of them and stuff, and I don't think I'd want to do that for my car. And I just want to make it more tasteful. Probably a black paint job with a brown interior. My inspiration for a build like this would be Lee Curtis's 87 635 CSI. In my opinion, this is about as close to perfect as you can get with a BMW. Although his is an automatic, which would not be the case for mine. And I don't really like those window stickers that he put on this thing. I think they're a little bit tacky. Let me know what you think about those in the comments. My other flashy, crashy car would be the Mercedes 190E. It's another one of my favorite German cars. These things are so mean looking and could definitely use some gassy love. By gassy love, I'm thinking grandpa spec, except awesome. I wouldn't mod the body of this car since I think the fenders already stick out enough and look cool. I'd do a tasteful exhaust with quad tips at the back. I probably wouldn't do headers or remove any cats, but I would just do a smaller, higher flowing resonator and muffler on this thing. Is it too much to put on chrome BBS RSs? They're so nice looking, but almost too much, you know? I'll stick with these unless you guys can think of something better. Also, some Michelin PS4s to help stick to the ground. Hellcat swapped Miata. I would never do that. For my next category of cars that I would definitely build and own if I was rich, we got clowning around. An all-wheel drive swapped John Cooper Works R53 Rally Mini. These things are tiny and handle like go-karts. The only setback about these minis is that they're front-wheel drive. Can you imagine this thing with a 60-40 all-wheel drive system? That would be so cool. I'd want to build from the R53 Mini since it's supercharged, which would be nice for rally since it has such a predictable power band. These cars have such a short wheelbase that you can turn them around any damn corner. Anyway, I'd upgrade the supercharger by putting a smaller pulley on it. I'd gut the interior, tube it, bucket seats, sunroof delete to take the weight off the top of the car, short shifter, and bang! Rally Mini. Let me know what else I should do to this thing because I think that's about as good as it could get.
It could get tragic. New pattern.